Welcome once more to Spore War After the War, our weekly analysis and retrospective series where we examine the most latest episode of the Spore War Actual play that we are currently hosting here on Dungeon Scrawlers. And it's a chance for us to celebrate what we enjoyed about the most recent session, ask questions about things we want to learn more about, and maybe pull back the curtain and give a bit of insight into actual play production and what that looks and sounds like, of which there may be some of that tonight. But before we do that, just as a reminder, my name is Jason Collins. I am a freelance comic book writer, tabletop role-playing game designer, actual play producer, and streamer. And you can find links to all of my work, my other actual plays, and my fantasy comic Thistle on my link tree at digital_Collins. And as I am the producer and editor for the Spore War series, I am behind the camera, except when I'm here with you for After the War. But it is my pleasure to introduce you to the Gamerunner for Spore War, Seneschal.
Hey, thank you. Hi, everyone.
So we are coming to this after the war, depending on when the audience is joining us, because they might choose to watch these out of order, which would be totally great too. And I think those conversations actually almost work out of order for the most part, other than some of the sequential stuff about the individual episodes itself. But this follows what we had thought was going to be the final Prelude session for this series that we've been building up the characters in terms of their mechanical levels, their capabilities, their influence in the setting of which they are located in, as well as just giving the players a chance to bond and play together before the start of the actual Spore War Adventure Path series. We thought this was going to be the final Prelude, part 2 of the third Prelude series that we've run. But it didn't quite go that way tonight. And so this is going to be an interesting conversation for those that have watched. What is going to be interesting is that there's going to be people watching After the War here with us right now that may not have the context for what I'm about to say, which is the decision whether or not I include any of that post-session discussion, of which I was continuing to record as you guys were just hashing out both in-character plotting as well as out-of-character scheduling and plotting. Because as much as it may not make for very entertaining or engaging actual play content, it is true to form role-playing game, sitting around the table, getting into a sidetrack discussion about plotting and planning against your foes, your enemies, who may have acted against you, and how that looks and sounds, and sometimes a bit of a time jump, a bit of a rewind. Let's roll it back. Let's say we go to bed tonight and then we go do something tomorrow and so forth. You had a whole bunch of discussions around that. And as much as that may not be what people who are choosing to want to watch the series and want to see the actual character adventure, it does make for very interesting game planning discussions with the game runner about how you adapt to those player discussions and decisions you make about, do we do this tonight or do we do this tomorrow? Not just time considerations for an actual play with everybody being on a schedule from when we're set to record. Your home table's on a schedule. People can arrive and must leave by certain times for that. And sometimes that next big scene, is going to go past the deadline for everybody to wrap up for the night. Do you postpone and then have that session on the next gathering? So yeah. I'm going to get you to talk about that and your reaction to all that and how that goes. And what I'd like to talk to you about as we go, and for you to give me your feedback on, is how much of that, if any, do we include in the lead up, and do we do it as a two-parter within one episode, the this episode that we just had, and then the next week's episode, which I could certainly edit into one maybe slightly longer episode for the wrap up of the Preludes, which would be a bit epic and wouldn't be inappropriate at all, versus including that long form discussion, which is a lot of out of character nonsense, but sharing that with the audience for the purpose of what it is. And then, of course, we would have a Prelude 3 Part 3 that we would record for the actual final wrap-up.
Yeah, I will answer all of those many questions from my perspective. The first thing I think it's important to say is running a game is always a learning experience. I learn from every campaign I run, from every one-off adventure module published, my own written materials. And one of the things that you learn right away is a plan is great as to how the session's going to unfold, but as soon as the makes contact with the players, it's like that axiom that no combat plan survives contact with the enemy. And not that I'm saying the players are enemies, but no perfectly planned session survives entirely intact from once the players get their hands on what's actually going on and their autonomy, the player decisions start interacting. So my thought is, and we'll go over why, but my thought is we cut out all of that planning stuff and put it here after this response
Mm,
in the after the war so that people who are interested can watch it because it's fascinating in terms of a learning experience for me, for everyone, for the viewers, anyone who wants to GM. That's part of the purpose of the after the war is to be this sort of
that's
I
interesting.
mean,
I like that. That's interesting.
and then we can say if you don't want to watch that, here's the time jump to where you and I start talking again and post that below. Um, but I think we include it here. I think for the streamed actual play, we cut out all their hemming and hawing and go straight to the actual plan next session. There may be a continuity jump depending on what people are wearing. I don't think that matters at all. I think that an entertaining session is more important. I agree with you that having all of that unedited back and forth isn't really useful for the actual play stream. It's a lot of stuff that could be skipped over, but I think for anyone who's into the meta or what's going on
Yeah.
behind the scenes, I
Yeah.
think that whole session is useful.
Yeah, that's the only reason why my first instinct wasn't just to cut it and leave it on the cutting room floor, right?
Yeah.
Was to can we use that footage in one way or another? I hadn't considered doing it on After the War. I think what I would do is have our After the War session as we are always, and then I'll probably cut to the end credits for After the War, and then I'll have a little tag to remind you stay after credits
Yeah.
for the session on this date, this Prelude 3 Part 2 discussion between the players of
Yeah.
how planning ends up, if that's of interest to you as a player, as a GM, and so forth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And before you go on, I'm gonna summarize really quickly what that I don't have no idea how long it was, but it felt like an hour of planning and back and it what it was for those who don't feel like watching it was the players being indecisive. It felt like to me, anyways, the players being indecisive because they were scared of a direct confrontation with their foe. They were afraid of the fallout, which are fears that I'd happily generated over the past couple sessions. But they were also, I was sitting there thinking, Valthorn's not an idiot. Their opponent is not an idiot. He is already initiating combat with the players. He's not going to put himself in danger. And if they leave him till the next day, he's just going to have a chance to bolster. He has support in town that he can leverage if he needs to defend his estate, if he needs to attack the players with third parties. He has those resources and assets. If it's a political game in the newsletters that they've been going back and forth, been playing that game all along. He started that. He's not as good at it as the players are, but he's going to engage in that. Okay, so Valthorn has resources that they're aware of, but during sessions sometimes they don't keep track of that. But they know that Tormagan has command of a large number of troops, and so Valthorn is going to make things worse the more time they give him. Once Valthorn made the effort to attack, it's it's an escalation of conflict back and forth, and I don't know that the players necessarily are giving him that kind of credit. But as a GM, I think that I have to sort of assume that the NPCs are cognizant of what's going on and they're going to react in a way that makes sense for their character. And this guy's a schemer. And he's a kind of schemer who's not brave enough to confront someone directly, and he pays people for that kind of thing. So I'm interested to see what happens next time. I think that we had a couple of players saying they'd had long days and weren't at their clearest. I I absolutely think that there was some issues with just going through these preludes on an expedited basis. Some groundwork may not have been laid as clearly by me as could have been, but they were stuck. They were stuck between taking action immediately and fearing that that would be dangerous and not taking action to the point where they were trying to go back and forth in time
That's right.
taking advantage of things I told them that started happening in the morning, and then say, well, no, I'm going to have to rest to prepare those spells. And as a GM, I find that kind of, it can be really off-putting as a GM. You're like, well, how do I solve this problem? But I think the problem solves itself in the sense that the players are here to have a good time. And I don't want to cause a total party kill because, we're not crossed the line. We haven't rolled for initiative yet. I don't mind rolling back in time, things that they've already discovered, they can set aside in their minds, and they can decide to do a different thing. And I genuinely don't mind how they handle this. They could do a back and forth guerrilla war, or they could do an assault, which I had assumed they would do. We've sort of left off the previous session with that being forecast. But I think this is exactly the kind of rubber hits the road moment where, as a less experienced GM, I struggled with these kinds of things.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, well, because I have a couple of different questions, and that the conversation can go a couple of different ways because there's both the conversation as a GM and the conversation for the story. The conversation of the GM, exactly as you say, that they were indecisive, they were afraid to take action for fear of it being a negative result, which is very much the player metagaming. That like, are we prepared? Is our spell list sufficient? Do I need to sleep to change my spells? And they started going off into the weeds about all that kind of prep work, which is totally normal at a table at the home game. It's you'll be very familiar with those scenarios, but part of it too was just the fact that it got triggered by the fact that J. Dior snuck somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, went into a location that they assumed would be quite secure and he would not have access to, and he did get access to it, and they then didn't know the outcome was J. Dior made. Are we immediately under threat from that? All of that out of character angst being driven by in character actions and consequences by that, which is great, and that's very normal. But as you say, they got really sucked into that. Okay, how much prep do we do? And it got talked to, and it switched into, do we do it now? Meaning tonight being in game. Do we do it right now and be like hit them before they hit us type of conversation? Also, a classic player, a thought process like, well, if I know they're coming for me and they've already made the first blow, even if they've done it through agents or assassins or magic and whatever it happens to be, but we know it's them and we know that they're trying to strike us down. That now we have to go after them all the way. But from a story standpoint, so that was the GM player dynamic, and I totally understand that. But from a story standpoint, it got really dark, and the conversation wasn't dark, but the topic got very dark. And I don't know if you were even listening to this or were thinking about how to respond to it in the moment. This is what I wanted to ask you. They were like straight up, we need to assassinate this person.
Yeah.
And that got really dark from who these characters have been up to this point, how they've chosen to react to certain things, how they've chosen to use their abilities and their resources and so forth, where they've gone for smear campaigns and public opinion and some lighthearted theft and break-in enters. And now straight up, this person likely could do us harm. We need to kill them. And that was, so I wanted to ask you as the GM how you thought about that. And it didn't even go anywhere because there was so many other conversations happening at the same time. It's normal. But now that we're in this after the war discussion, it's such a great moment to bring it up for any other players or any other audience members who may have watched that episode and went, wow, that got dark real fast, right?
Yeah. And there were other things too. Like I had to caution Briala against, attacking the queen.
So much going on. I totally forgot about that. That was an amazing moment.
Multiple moments like that, with a nightmare spell, but still, the way an issue of national security for the state of Keon, and someone's causing magical nightmares for the queen. No criticism to Gwen.
No, it's not a criticism. Gwen, it was fantastic. It
was great.
Both the player reaction, because everybody did the what you just said what, and then the character reaction. Whoa! Let's slow this down for a second.
Exactly, and then the arson. Also against a third-party target, like really not the prime target, but still. So I was there and I was listening. Absolutely, I heard all of that. And what I heard was these players are afraid of an outright assault on a noble, which is something that earlier on, before they had justification, would have been a problem. But they have accumulated evidence against this this noble, and if the noble agent summons demons to defend themselves or anything like that in the fight, they're going to have the justification they need to not be in trouble for this, which I think was part of their concern.
Yes.
The darkness, the assassinate, I don't think that's so much of an issue because, I mean, Lord Valthorn tried to kill them, and at that point the gloves are kind of off.
Absolutely.
And so is it different from a fight in his hall as opposed to killing him in his sleep? Yes, it gets dark, but it wasn't the darkest thing they contemplated. I'm interested to see what they come up with next week. They recognized that they needed more time to think about this, which
Yes.
I think on their part, and that was Steven, that was a great idea. Let's
Yes.
make the plans in chat. Let's revisit it later. Because I think the indecision, they were looking for a direct signal from me, and I gave them some subtle ones.
Yeah.
And then some more and more overt ones, and they still were undecided. Which I've been there as a player. It's tough. But it's also about building trust because as the GM, they don't know if I'm going to slap them down for doing what I consider to be the wrong thing. I'm not. Like, if they try to do a war of attrition, Valthorn, there's 3 stages of Valthorn's efforts to draw them out. I don't know what happens if they just never attack Valthorn. That had not occurred to me.
Right.
Because he won't attack them. He's not brave. He's gonna just keep sending others after them.
Yes.
And that will never stop.
Yeah. Because he has the resources and he's got a reputation to protect for himself, and he's got his own assets that he wants to protect as well. And this is just, when you're a noble, this is how you do these things.
That's right. And I also have thought this through in the sense that I don't think it would ever occur to him that these interlopers would ever attack him in his estate.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got guards. He's not worried about it, but it's also not on his mind. Tormund's thinking about it.
And I was going to say, because you had Tormund make a comment was that a comment that JDR overheard, or was that the scene that you opened with, of the sort of the cutaway to,
it was a cutscene.
That's right. And just because we're talking about so many conversations at the same time, I noted that in the moment when it happened. I'm like, oh, that is something I need to ask you about in After the War, because I don't think you've used that storytelling device yet in the Preludes, where you show the actions and the conversations of the very NPCs that are aligned against you.
I have not used it before. I like to use it sparingly. If overdone, I think it's a problem. But it follows film. It follows
Totally
book storytelling. Like it's, and the player characters did a good job of keeping that direct knowledge from their characters.
And that's, and for for game runners and GMs out there who might be watching this series, and how we kind of lean in a little bit into the decisions as a GM, and how you make those decisions in terms of your own home table. Trust, it can be a good way, not that you want to test your players because you don't trust them, but it is a good way to just see if your players can separate themselves and their knowledge from the character knowledge by using sometimes a little bit of those cutaway scenes, or those little bit of a reveal of what is the enemy up to leading up to this, and you get to throw some Easter eggs through some dialogue and some reveals, and Tormund essentially complimenting the player characters, where they get to hear this person that they've already tussled with once give them their due and say they're not pushovers, they're someone that you need, people that you need to be careful of. I respect their abilities, and I really liked that you added that in there. But at the same time, as you say, it's also a way that they're not then immediately using that knowledge when they start to formulate their character plans.
And it was almost as important that Valthorn was dismissive of that.
Yes.
Tormund respects them. Valthorn does not.
Yes. Yep. So that was a separate note, but I'm like mentally, when that happened, I was like, oh, that's gonna be a great discussion piece, because you hadn't used it before, and I don't remember using it often, even at our home table. So it was something that I wanted to just see if that was something you had made an active choice to include in, or if it was something new that you were trying out that you wanted to see if it was worthwhile.
I've used it before in our home game, but sparingly. I use it sparingly throughout. I have. I sometimes use it in a joking way, where the players have outsmarted an NPC character. I'll play out the conversation where they're like, "What do you mean they destroyed my ship?" You know,
Yes.
the discovery. Like, I'll often play that out. I do that more often than this pre-action cutscene, which I enjoyed doing here. And yes, it was partly just because with any playing group, I like to have at least a sense as to whether the player characters can separate their personal knowledge from the character knowledge. And given that I thought we were heading straight into combat at Valthorn Estate because it had been sort of previewed at the end of the last session, that's what the plan was, at least in terms of the narrative design and the session planning. I didn't think I was giving away anything
No,
terribly
no,
shocking.
no, it wasn't. It was a good use of it because it was pretty much information that the players themselves already knew.
Yeah,
But I did like it because it provided a bit of depth to the world and showed, what's happening in other locations at the same time, right? So that was just
yeah,
really nice. And it was good to see it. Good to see it in the game that we're showcasing that people can see how an effective way of how to use that. So that was great.
yeah. Thanks.
So they've got a week now
Yeah,
out of game to plan an assault on an elven noble who's well established in the many centuries in this cosmopolitan elven city of Green Gold in the nation of Keonan in Galarian, who they have now inserted themselves into his plans and or rebuked him to his face already, and now they know that he has taken direct action against them. And it was great to see a NPC that was almost an annoyance, an irritant in their previous story, the previous prelude leading up to this point, ended up being a helpful and valuable member in a moment of need when they suddenly discovered that their home base was breached. I just thought that was really fun as well to have
yeah.
a druid's reaction to this type of sort of subterfuge and shenanigans, right? But they've got a week now to plan a much more serious response, whether it's defensive or offensive. I recall them having the conversation about. I think Stephen again said it'd be great if Valthorn acted against us again, so that they could probably feel justified, which tied into that hesitation and doubt that you were just talking about. That he was saying it'd be great if we could goad him or bait him into hitting us again, right? But they've got a week to prepare, and do they prepare defensively or do they prepare with the intent that we are going to take this fight to this person, so it's not on not in our home base, and not with our own, not with the locals around us being in danger, but that we're taking it to where we can use our full power against him.
Yeah, I've given them also an opportunity to rewind the clock a little bit and still have it be the night of to make the decision whether to wait or not.
True, true.
And the reason I did that, there were a couple of reasons I did that. One is because several of them were talking, and some of them were clearly talking in the present tense. It's still nighttime, and some of them were talking, no, we've gone to the morning.
No,
And I didn't want the decision of one to affect all. At least that was sort of my interpretation as to how they were talking.
that's right.
I had given them some information that was really information they could have deduced, although I don't think they did realize the dangers of waiting. Um, and it would have been a challenging deduction, I think, for them to realize that
Yeah,
based on some scant information. They could have gathered more information. And certainly, if JDR had dropped at the windows to what the conversation was in that room, they would have had clear, no uncertainty that waiting was a bad idea. Again, JDR was relying on invisibility, but people react to an open door,
absolutely.
and he didn't know that one of them could see invisible. Um, it is so that it is going to be the first question as to whether they wait and do a cat and mouse game with Valthorn's forces in town, or do a discredit campaign, or both, and don't immediately conduct an assault, waiting for an attack that likely never will come, in the sense that there will be attacks, but never from the players they want to actually eliminate as being a threat to them. But they also have to be somewhat clever, because if they caught on to the fact that they don't want to face all of them at the same time, and that's smart. There are multiple avenues to them to sort of separate out or plan the timing of their attack where they only have to deal with some of their opponents' adversaries. They're all going to be in the estate, I expect, unless they find a way to draw some of them out. And there are ways to do that. But this is, if they fight them all at once, it's an impossible battle. It is going to be.
And that's what I was thinking about tonight when they talked about going right away, and I was like, I don't know. Like I think I would have that same concern. Like there's too many of them all in the one place, and there was new faces, new people that they did not recognize who are in the room when the plotting is going on, that they don't know who those people are, their capabilities, their alliances, and so forth. So that suddenly puts a lot of danger in the way of making that decision. So that was my concern as well. Even just watching as an observer, that you've got to find a way to separate them out a bit.
Or just use patience to wait as natural migrations in the building occur.
And that gets to your point of it's still going, but being smart about it. And so, we're gonna do cat and mouse, as you say, and pick off the easy guards, and then isolate people one at a time when the opportunity arrives. Quick segue to a story for me as a early GM in my early 20s, playing Star Wars D6 by West End Games back in the day. And I had a scene where the two player characters were had an encounter with somebody who managed to get onto a speeder bike and take off into the city because they didn't want to fight them. They knew that would be a losing proposition against a fully armored bounty hunter and their wisecracking blaster pistol wielding alien companion. So the combatant got into a speeder bike and immediately took off, and so then they started chasing and following that person through the city, lost them on the bike, but were trying to track them down and find out where they had gone. I knew as the GM that person took their speeder bike, ditched into the city, immediately went to the spaceport, got onto their chase transport, and got the hell off planet, and they were gone. And I wasted about an hour and a half of the remaining session allowing them to search and search and search. And they were just getting more and more frustrated as they kept hitting these walls, until finally one of the players said to me, well, is the person even still here? Or what are we doing wrong? And I just kind of said, they jumped on their ship and they immediately left. They left the city. They left the planet. Yeah. Just sharing that with them because I felt bad at this point because we were just going in circles. And you talk about the game not being fun. It was not. I was not making it fun for the players. It was the natural consequences of the bad guy getting away. But I, as a GM, had made a rookie mistake in not thinking that, okay, just give them a quick summary and then move on with it. And the player said to me, you just if we're just wasting our time, then you just got to tell us or cut scene to it and go to something else. And he wasn't upset with me for it. He was just very, very frustrated that the entire rest of our game session had been taken up with this fruitless search for a character or an individual that was never going to be found where they were. And so that was a lesson that I learned in my early 20s as a GM, and I've always remembered that, to be conscious of the fact that don't jerk the player's chain, don't waste their time, allow them to find out the information that they can find out, and the moment they hit the wall, tell them you've hit the wall and the trail's gone cold.
Yeah, that is really smart, and it's a balance though between letting them, and it's letting them have their autonomy and make the decisions as to what they're actually going to do. And if it ends up being a wild goose chase, I think a certain amount of that is how the players learn too. Not just how to avoid that in future, but also learning to deal with a different GM. Part of that is, learning how your GM thinks. And I would say that there's a moment where you just start dropping information.
Yeah.
But if you drop it right away, then they're not going to be more careful in future.
No, you're right. And you make it too easy that they won't try, or they just wait for those hints to come, or like you say, they just it just ruins the mystery.
Then you're just telling a story, and their observers are part of the audience.
Well, yeah, and you're dictating what happens to their character rather than them doing that. It's one of the things I appreciate about our home table, because the players are also mature, so experienced, and very much able to separate the meta from their character knowledge. Because there are times when we can do a bit of an info dump, or we can give a bit of background that our characters would never have discovered on our own, or without a ton of legwork and investigation and so forth. But just to kind of let them know this is the motivation, or this is the person, or this is their history that they're coming from, and players around the table get to go, oh, that's really cool, I like that, or now I understand the motivation, but then still play it straight as their characters, and know that there's probably some surprises coming around the way. We've been able to do that a few times over the years at our table with various things, just because it was easier just to kind of give them the information they needed to know, so we didn't waste a whole session for them trying to discover something. But the players don't take that for granted and don't expect it every time.
Yeah. This is a little different situation though, in the sense that they're making a battle plan, and I felt that I needed to give them some information because we need to keep this moving for the hard stop and
Totally.
the airing schedule and all the rest of it. But at the same time, I don't want to tell them, okay, now you're assaulting Valthorn when they're all together in one place and it's the most dangerous possible time to do it, or you're not attacking at all and now you're being attacked by 70 brigands, which are really the two possibilities. But and sometimes it's a matter of judging when the player characters are going to skip too much time.
Yes.
That's an interesting one where they're like, okay, we're going to wait 7 days or something like that, when you know that you've got scripted events that are happening. So you either adjust the script so that you set it back a week so that they don't face plant because of just a quick decision of, we need some more time and we're assuming it's not going to be harmful when it might be.
Yeah.
So you adjust that timeline, or you give them a clue that that's not going to go according to their plan for some reason. And these player characters now have ties to the community. So I didn't think it was too much of an overreach to say there's stuff going on that you find out about pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though they're not asking about it.
That's the payoff for all the work you've put in and all the work that they've put in as players in building up these relationships and their bonds to the community that these preludes have allowed them to do. There can be payoff there, and we've seen that in the home game as well, right? Where, okay, you hit the NPC network, you hit your network of trusted allies, and they tell you things that you need to know. We don't need to roll through. You don't need to do your diplomacies and your gather informations and your investigations and so forth. It's like you've built up this resource that's now available to you. It's not a matter of a roll or a mechanical outcome. It's going to happen. You've built the trust. You've saved their lives. You've saved their loved ones. You've rescued them or saved their business. They're absolutely going to be inclined to help you, and they'll give you all the information that they know. Sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes it's a little. But that's the payoff for all the work setting up this relationship they have with the city. That the city can now be a resource at their disposal as well.
Which I think brings me right into a topic I want to address, which is player characters calling the police. Let's go to the Queen. Let's get the town guard to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Let's have someone else do the adventure for us. Type dynamics, because there is that natural comment of, I'm, as a player, I'm overwhelmed by this, but aren't there town guard who can take care of the situation? And yeah, there are, but they've already had communication from one of their mentors, Serthal, that the guards aren't up to dealing with Valthorn.
Yeah.
They're adversaries beyond the local guards.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't mean that there aren't resources in Greengold that could deal with Valthorn if push came to shove, but the initial steps that they're doing, we've encountered that at our home table, where there was one time where it's like, let's let someone else have this adventure. We're out. That was in the Middle Earth game,
right?
Which was, I think, it's still part of our table lore.
That's right. That's right.
But it's that moment where it's like, well, yes, you can involve others, but as a player, do you really want the town guards to have the adventure that I've written for you?
Yeah. But I don't know if you realize you did in the moment, but you also talked about the consequences of involving the town guard, the risk to the town guard, as just honest men and women who just go to work every day and are doing their job, protecting Greengold from bandits and pickpockets and drunk ruffians and rude sailors and things like that. And the occasional maybe serious investigation or adventure, conflict, but you position it as that if you involve the town guard, some of them are gonna get killed, and is that a decision that that you as the players or you as the characters, knowing that the risk involved, knowing that the potential or the ability of this villain is sufficient to that town guards can't just show up and arrest them, would you subject them to that, right? Because the more influence you have in a city, the more the city might be inclined to agree with you and say, okay, we will send a detachment of town guard to, make him answer these charges, or to bring him in for a questioning or whatever. And what's the fate of those guards if you make them go and do that first?
I do recall that, and I also knew at that time they'd already styled themselves the Guardians of Green Gold. Were they really going to be? We're the Guardians of Green Gold, but we'd rather these other people who are less capable
Yeah.
risk their lives. This seems
Yeah.
inconvenient. No, they're good players. They knew what to do.
Absolutely. So they've got a week to plan it out. They're going to plan it out in detail so that when we start next week, we're not then chewing the fat on all of that again. We're immediately going into whatever action plan they have had. The two choices, as you kind of laid out for them, and I think you'll need to go in and whatever, as they start that discussion, you'll probably want to set the stage for them as a reminder. The two choices being tonight or tomorrow or the next day, whatever that time delay is. And then just make it clear that sometimes you want to narrow the choice to just one or two choices so that they will then make their decision and stick to it. And then it gives you as the GM sort of a clear path to say, okay, this is the consequences for path A and this is the consequences for path B. And you don't have to do a bunch of contingency planning in terms of other outcomes or other encounters.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea to lay it out a little bit more clearly in the chat. But I also think that now that it's been firmly presented to them in terms of the choices they have, I think they will think about it, and I think they'll probably be somewhat careful, but I think they'll make a decision which approach to take, which is something I've been there. I don't want to commit to one of these because once we're committed, it's happening.
Right. That's right. Especially for spellcasters, people with or characters with somewhat limited resources, or resources that need to be refreshed from time to time. And your spell list was all about I'm going shopping, and I'm going to the library, and I'm going to do all these other things, and I want all of my investigation and deduction and social spells at my disposal to be able to have a great day of success doing all these things. And then it's like, no, now we're assaulting a noble lord's manor estate. Is your spell list ready? and charm person or something may not quite cut it in terms of what you need going forward. And so I can see that being one of the biggest drawbacks for them in terms of if they just don't feel like they've got the character resources that at their disposal that need to be refreshed or changed to increase their chances of success.
Yeah, and there are some very difficult items in the upcoming conflict, and some of them are going to require some care. So I'm glad they're having the chance to plan it out.
I thought that you were going a different direction when you had the druid help them with the quick encounter that looked like it was going to be a tactical encounter, but it was a narrative encounter as well. I totally thought that you were going to pull a fast one and say that there was whether it's a tree into tree spirit, whatever it was. I didn't even think about the druid being there. I thought it was going to be this dormant tree that was in fact animated or alive, that's just been living in the courtyard, having a good sleep, and then came awake. That was initially where I thought you were going with that one.
That's a good idea, but I didn't have that one.
That's okay. That's totally okay. But that was where my imagination went with it, right? So
yeah. So yeah, Cedric the druid has this plant form spell. It's a 4th level spell. And yeah, I didn't want to have. I knew we didn't have time for 2 combat encounters.
Yes.
It was important that Valthorn make the first move, because I knew the players otherwise would feel shackled because of my prior comments about the dangers of directly assaulting nobles without cause.
Right.
And so this was my way of doing it, and as well as giving them the hint that the demonologist is in fact a demonologist, and all that sort of thing. So it served a couple of different purposes, but I didn't want to play it through because it wasn't a real threat. It was Valthorn underestimating their capabilities, as I'd sort of forecast in the cutscene.
That's right.
So it was a matter of getting an appreciation for Cedric, their guest, as well.
Yes.
He's not going to assault Valthorn's place, though.
No, but it was such a good use of him as an NPC, and a reminder that he's there as a resource for that. So
Yeah.
I thought that was just really great.
Thank you.
And a good use of the spell as well for that. I didn't know that plant form you could do a tree. Like it's I guess at the higher level you can
It
just.
Well, if you read it, it doesn't actually say that. It has an arboreal form and another one.
Oh,
I can't
okay.
remember
Well,
what it was.
that was
But
that was my question mechanically was
yeah,
did Matt just stretch that spell to allow it for the cool narrative? Absolutely, that's fantastic. Or is it
yeah,
actually a spell that can allow you to do a tree? And I'm like, well, that's just awesome.
yeah. It has branch attacks. It doesn't do area of effect. But I, for the swarm rules and all the rest of it,
Totally.
I didn't need to. I didn't need to rule it out.
No, no,
Like
no.
I didn't need to use the rules. It was just the tree can deal with the bats. That's fine.
That's cool. Very good.
Um, and it needed to feel like it didn't need to feel like the player characters were endangered. It just had to feel like Valthorn tried to kill them.
But it did make them feel vulnerable. And
Yeah,
that was the takeaway, which was the whole point of it, was that you foreshadowed it in the cutscene that he's like, okay, we'll just send your minions to go and do this work for us. Maybe we get lucky and they take a couple of them down. Again, Valthorn dismissing how capable they might really be. But it did make them feel very vulnerable, and they're immediately like up on the rooftop and they're checking the tree lines and they're scouting around. So even before they got into that whole long segue of the planning, or the session kind of devolving into a planning and plotting session, their reaction to that was to be very well, paranoid, aware, depending on each of the characters and what they were doing, because they suddenly realized, okay, at any moment, invisible assassins with fly spells are coming over these walls, and we need to be ready.
yes. And I think they will build that grate over get an iron grate built over the courtyard. I don't think they're comfortable with having that vulnerability anymore,
Yeah, yeah,
which is great.
yeah,
Make that place your own.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely. Another gold sink. There we go.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. I'm giving them lots of gold and lots of gold sinks.
That's right. It's perfect for that. That's the previous after the war sessions. We talk about the benefits of giving the player characters a permanent or semi-permanent location if there's a city or place that they return to, because it creates a whole bunch of stories all by itself, even without the rest of the adventure that you may have in mind. So it's great for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, short session for the session this week. We talked about the fact that maybe we're going to take that broader out of character session and maybe tag it on to the end of this after the war, so that GMs and players alike who want to see a table with a bunch of experienced and savvy players really start chewing on the plotting and planning of a major conflict event can see that in real time as it just unfolds naturally throughout the conversation. So maybe we'll edit that into the end of this after the war as a little bit of bonus material. But as far as this after the war session goes, I don't have a bunch more to ask, because the session was what it was, and it was kind of neat and tidy in terms of the actual gameplay. But we called that this was going to be the final prelude. Pretty sure we're calling next week's session as being the final prelude session for this series of vignettes leading up to the start of Spore War. Do you expect that it's going to be probably tactical for almost the entire session, and then maybe
Yes.
a bit of a wrap up at the end, depending on how well
Yeah,
that goes?
there's room for a wrap up, but I think it's going to be tactical combat for most of it. And I do think we might cut these two together. It might just flow better. We'll see.
We'll see. We can talk about that some more in our own chat as well after this one, for sure, and then make a creative decision in terms of
Exactly.
actual play design and sharing game design and gameplay breakdowns. And that's part of what After the War is designed to do, is not just to talk about how much fun the players had or maybe how cool a specific scene was, is to really talk about how you build a game out and how you build a game for your home table and how you build a game for an audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really interested. I think I'll make this comment now before we close off. I'm really interested to see comments on the after the war sessions, if there are any, because there's an opportunity there for me as a GM to learn as well. In terms of, I think if there's other people watching who have ideas as to how things could be done differently, that'll be informative. I've never had that kind of live feedback, or not live, but that real feedback other than the players at the table. I don't know what kind of viewership it'll get, but I think that'll be interesting for me to see.
I think this is a little bit of a unique bit of content for the Dungeon Scrawlers channel. I don't know that they've done
Yeah.
too much of a breakdown or broader discussion. They've got a ton of other like writing related chats and storytelling chats and plotting and so forth related to fiction writing and creative writing, screenwriting, all those other types of things, because there's so many great creatives that hang out in the community. But most of the chat about the streams typically relate to the in-game content that might happen that week, and there'd be some commentary back and forth, a bit of speculation. But the creatives who created those shows and created those games, I don't know that they've done too many of these breakdowns, especially as we have with the diligence of a weekly breakdown every week that you can tune into, you can not tune into if you don't feel you need to every week. But it's these conversations and these sort of discoveries that we have, because this is not scripted content. This is absolutely just you and I chatting about the events of the most recent session as we watched it. But like as we've seen tonight, right, the conversation can drift back and forth to previous episodes and talk about future episodes at the same time, and then it can get into just game theory and game design and gameplay and rules interpretations and all sorts of just fun crunchy stuff as well, because we know there's players on each end of the spectrum that are interested in different aspects of role-playing games based on that. So and my hope is I can solicit some questions through the community on Discord to encourage people to ask us questions that we can then answer on future After the War sessions as well.
That would be great, and of course, I just hope that the comments are kind for the sake of my fragile ego.
Yeah, he's a sensitive butterfly. Absolutely. Thank you,
Jason.
No,
that was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. So thank you to everybody watching. And by the time this goes to air, we may or may not have made a decision to include some of that out of character footage at the end of this After the War session to allow you to just watch a bunch of players dig into the consequences of their game choices, and then have a very player oriented mechanical discussion about role playing games and how they prepare for the disaster that's due to come, whatever form combat's going to take. So I think it'll be very entertaining just to watch that as well. And for those that choose to watch that content, they could then get to see when they tune into the next episode, did their plan come to fruition? Did it actually work out the way they wanted? So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's important to include it. I think there's no reason not to.
Thanks so much, everybody, for spending part of your week with us again. One more time, my name is Jason Collins. I'm a freelance comic book writer, tabletop role-playing game designer, actual play producer, and streamer. You can find links to my published work, the other actual plays I've been involved in, and my fantasy comic Thistle on my link tree at digital_Collins.
And I'm Matt. You can call me Seneschal, and I just appreciate you watching. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
I'm just cognizant of time.
Yep.
Because we need to respect the hard stop, which is today 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Feel free to narrate some things if you want.
Well, I don't want to make the decisions for you.
We're out of play right now, right? Are we talking?
Yeah,
in that
I think
regard?
when I said pause, I meant we're going to edit some discussion out. But I'm just mindful of time. I don't want to, step on player autonomy, and I don't want to make decisions for you. But what does tomorrow look like if you just let things be?
Best case, we attack Valthorn without the Barons present.
So you're trying to divide and conquer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ideally,
Or they attack you. Are you all staying in the same location at the same time from now until you anticipate an attack? Or are they going to divide and conquer you as well?
No, that would be real smart for us to stay together.
Yeah.
I think that we're staying together. If they attack us in the night, then that's when the confrontation happens. Otherwise, we try to divide and conquer in the morning.
Okay.
All right, let's do that.
Anyways, so the point of the pause is just to have a moment of, and maybe we don't need to pause it. Maybe we let the whole thing stay in. I don't care. But just with respect to the hard stop, I want to make sure we don't run out of time today. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I as much as I love the role play, we just need to power through what your actual plan is, and I need to be clear on it.
To my understanding, our plan is we've taken watches. We're gonna stay here tonight,
Yep.
and then we're either releasing our smear campaign in the morning together, or we're going to their house in the morning.
I
Or
like
both?
I like releasing something just really like just really make him mad, really make him probably the part about him being broke.
Ideally, I want to lure them to us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't
So
want to go and be the guy kicking in his door, as
I-
fun as that would be.
same.
Maybe it's
So-
blackmail.
Yeah, we could do that. We could we could write something that he knows. Like, he knows that this is undeniable. It's like we can hint at something. It's like, oh, watch out for the next edition coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
We
put
reveal
him on a
all
timer.
the next edition.
All right. So you're able to put some nasty things in that communication in that
Mhm.
newsletter. You're able to say, allied with demons, smuggler and extortion, out of money, all these sorts of things that he will find deeply troubling. So in the morning that goes out. You also have these runners who are letting you know that other than messengers, no one leaves the Valthorn estate. Between, would you be keeping your thumb on what's going on in terms of scuttlebutt?
Yeah.
If nobody is leaving the estate, I think I cast invisibility on somebody, and I think we go arson. Arson one of the nobles, the Baron's houses, so that they are pulled away.
Just in a this is something that contextually we as people in the 21st century wouldn't really identify. I mean, there are serious crimes on the books for arson. Arson in pre-fire department type times is civilization, like it's civilization
Yeah.
level threat. It
Mhm.
gets out of control, burns down a town. People get really, really upset, even if you had good reasons. We
Right.
all
Yeah.
know that.
And that's why it's invisible.
Sorry, yeah. Just
Did you forget
just
about the part
making-
where invisibility was cast and I get a get out
Sorry,
of jail free
my
card for
bad.
all bad things we've ever
all
done?
good. All ideas are good ideas. My apologies.
Okay, perfect. We won't do that. Let's just go in there. Let's kill everybody. Let's just go
Yeah.
from there.
Well, no.
BK where we do it.
Is what? Okay, I'll give you this. Valthorn is not the kind of guy who's going to do any of his own dirty work.
No.
He's not coming to your house.
No.
Okay.
What you learn is about 70 of Tormagan's brigands are making their way into town.
Ooh.
70 is a higher number.
So essentially the options that we're faced with are continue to deal with Valthorn stuff as he continues making moves, or we put a stop to it.
Or just
Or is
avoid
that-
these guys. But
Or just avoid
he's taking the measure that the bats didn't work. Once he discovers the bats doesn't work, this is his next step.
I think we just go then, right?
It's a
Yeah,
rabble
just
of
go.
it does not look like particularly skilled people, but you're getting word that a rabble of brigands or ruffians has made their way into town. Which in itself is something you could put in a newsletter.
Mm.
If you can
Here's
prove
thought.
it was him.
Here's a thought. I mean, we do still have on the books Tormagan, his literal payroll. Like we have that. The big thing being, I mostly just want to go hunt down some brigands now. Because I mean, there's 70 of them, but they're not all together at once.
No, that's right.
So, and brigands coming into town is a problem for everybody. This is a problem we can solve as the Green Guard.
You're able to identify them as brigands because you've done years
We
of
fought some of them.
you've been
Yeah.
you've been following Tormagan's activities for all that downtime, right? You're aware of going. Your characters are aware of what's going on with this stuff. That's why I'm giving you that information.
Oh, okay.
The general populace just sees more humans coming into town.
So we can't assassinate 70 people in the street. So
Unfortunate.
I think
Yeah,
we have to go
so-
and
That's
fight
how you
before,
structure it.
right?
Yep. So I think, yeah, in that case, we work on our paper and we just send it out, and then we go to Tormig or go to Valthorn in the morning. Then I think that's the way to not draw this out as much, right?
Or you know, I don't mind doing another session. If you guys want to do a campaign of attrition and a different plan, that's for you guys to say. I don't mind that at all. I think that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
The question is really just Valthorn's not coming to your house to deal with you.
No.
Okay.
I'll leave it to the group.
Another question: if we're trying to honor the hard stop, would this combat take an hour or more?
Yes, I think it might.
Okay.
So we can do prep, and then probably you brought up the idea of another session.
Yeah.
The idea.
So if we aggravate him enough, he will do something, but he himself won't come out.
Yeah.
We
won't
want
necessarily be able to prove that he
right.
is
We want to
retaliating.
provoke him, basically.
You've never heard of him taking direct action against any of his enemies,
Yeah.
personally. And based on what happened last night, where he asked someone else to do something, and based on what you're learning this morning, that he's got Tormig's crew coming into town for some reason you assume nefarious. It's reinforcing that the plan of having them attack you isn't going to necessarily give you a solution to your problems in terms of Valthorn coming to your house.
Yeah. And I mean, we could.
So, or do we want to assassinate Valthorn?
I mean, it is an option.
True.
And I do now have a very handy venom.
Ooh.
We wait until the wedding.
Well.
The wedding.
What wedding?
Celaval and Valthorn are betrothed to wed.
She's not going to wed until she gets those bags out from under her eyes.
That is a very astute point.
It's going to be a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple weeks. So.
Yeah, but what if we offer a solution to that problem?
Mhm.
You get his lands, his money, and you don't have to deal with him.
I mean, we could break into his place in the middle of the night, and try to assassinate him. Part of the research we did was to find out if he has magic. I remember.
Yes.
Did we learn whether he has magic?
You learn that he engages those who have access to magic, but you've not heard of him using magic. He has a reputation as being an incredible duelist.
Ooh, okay.
Let's
Okay.
maybe
So-
that's what we do. I can cast every spell on people that we'd like. I can give people flying speed. I can make them flying speed and invisible. I can send all of you up. I can teleport people to the top, and you four brute squat it. And
There's a thought.
Yeah. So teleport. Looking for a balcony somewhere. Let's see.
There is a balcony around the periphery under these pillars in the main room. So if you want to, you would know that. You don't know much about the second floor. But the Valthorn estate in that grand hall does have a balcony. It just goes, it's not on the window arc, but everywhere else around the between the pillars and the wall. Those staircases on either the north and south side go up to the balcony.
Oh, I see. So it's a mezzanine type balcony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I was thinking like, a bedroom balcony. Oh, that would be the second floor though. It wouldn't be on this floor.
That's right. There are no. Oh yeah, there's balconies on the north side, and on the south side. Not at the front or the back.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. No, just on the north side. Reading this wrong.
Okay.
There's a balcony on the north side only,
Okay.
on the second floor.
So if we got in the second floor, balcony,
Murder.
pick a lock, get in.
I have lockpicks.
And yeah. Okay. I mean, and you can teleport us to up there, Briella?
Yeah, I'm. I could cast fly on like
Oh.
you, and I could cast it on JD, and you could each pick somebody up to get up there.
Okay. How high is the balcony off the ground?
It would be about 20 feet up.
Okay.
You would have a flying speed of 20 feet.
If you're heavily encumbered flying, I think it affects you, but we'll look that up before it comes to it.
So, follow-up question. If our plan is to assault, how much prep are we making? Time-wise.
I would need to, it would have to be in the morning. I'd have to go to bed right now, and then we could do it.
Okay.
Well, we want to do it at night, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we're breaking into his house, we don't want witnesses.
It'd have to be the following night then.
Another question about fly and everything like that. If things go badly and you're flying to the point where like you're on the mezzanine and everything like that, the only way out is through. Whereas if we just do a frontal assault, we just turn back and
You know, down. I just had an idea. What if the 70 thugs are for protection for Valthorn's estate? That would be a bummer.
It would be, but also seems unlikely, seeing as he has his own guards.
We're going back and forth in time a little bit because we're talking about still going to bed, whereas I've already forecast what happens in the morning that you discover. So I don't mind a little bit of that if you're talking things through. But you knew that Valthorn had access to thugs through Ptarmigan.
Yeah.
The numbers are a bit surprising, and how close they are at hand. That implies that they were already planning something.
All right.
And okay, which side of the building is so I would assume that the master bedroom, for instance, would be overlooking the most beautiful part of the yard or the garden.
The main entrance is the least beautiful side. All the gardens surround all the way around. But the fact that the balcony is only on the north side and has richly appointed furniture, outdoor furniture there, suggests that the master bedroom is on the north side.
Okay. So, yeah.
You know what? We don't need to fly. I literally have a grappling arrow.
Ropes work.
Ropes work.
Yeah. It's just noisy.
It is noisy.
Okay, yeah.
And part of the problem, you're dealing with a noble estate that has guards and is on alert.
True.
So.
Yeah.
And there may be guards on the balcony.
There probably
we kind of want to probably do some reconnaissance and see where the freaking guards are. I kind of, honestly, I feel like we should call it here and over the next week discuss online.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Because I think we're a little stumped.
Yeah, I think we're going to be going back and forth for a while here.
It's a complicated situation, and I don't want you to make a hasty decision. If we rewind the clock so that you rest, I'm okay with that under the circumstances. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yeah, another thing is to start taking out his allies one by one. Take out Tormaghan, take out the Baron.
The big problem being we don't know if Tormaghan's in the place with him.
Right. We have
You
to
do.
Yeah.
Oh, he's staying there?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Because we heard
You know that nobody
left.
has left other than messengers.
Oh.
If you wait till the
Okay.
morning.
Yeah.
You have a
Okay.
feeling that no one's going to leave.
Yeah, so the confirmation is that like if we're fighting them there, we're fighting everybody.
Okay.
For the most part, yeah.
So let's pick off some thugs.
Is there anything meaningful that we can do where we like weaken their defenses before we actually have a proper attack?
This is what. All right. So let's call it and meditate and make proposals and we'll chat over, and then we'll have a plan for next week.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think based off of how long this session was, I think that this one would just be edited together, spliced together.
Yeah, that you
the
could
same episode.
totally do that. Yeah, just back it
on
up
account
to
of we didn't get to do a whole lot.
yeah, just back it up to the point that like JDR comes back with his intelligence, and then we make a plan, we announce our plan, and go.
We may even cut out everything after the pause, and if the viewers are seeing us having this discussion, I think it's just really important for it to be fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that your creativity in terms of how you approach this, I know things in terms of the plans of what's going on behind the scenes, but it is for the players to discover. But I think that some of this information is partly because we're doing condensed for actual play streaming. There would have been a longer lead up with more information if this had been a home table game. So I just don't want that to penalize you. That's why I've sort of been forthcoming with some of this additional information.
Yeah.
What we'll do, we're gonna close it out. If we decide to say to have this be one episode, then we're saying thanks everyone. This has been great. We'll check out next time for the exciting conclusion. Didn't expect to go to a second session. If we carry right through, I've got 3 of these shirts. I can put one on, and we'll have our production assistant make sure we have continuity covered. Everyone remember what you're wearing today. And
Okay.
we'll cut out as much as we feel like. We'll just give Jason lots and lots of editing work. So let's cut the recording. We'll stay on for a little bit just to talk about timing next week and what the plan is, just to make sure we can, if there is a combat, we can do it in one session. And if there's going to be like hit and run cat and mouse games with the 70 brigands running through town and trying to spy on them, figure out what they're doing, try to deal with anything fun about gathering more information, that's all cool too. But let's try to pre-script that in the comments. You guys can discuss, come in with a plan. We'll go through that as quick as we can. I already know the answers to a lot of those questions. It's just a matter of what you try to do.
Yeah, and if any of you want any specific spells, I can prepare. So like any plan that you have, no matter the amount of spell slots, up to a certain extent, like I can try and like adapt because I'm flexible in that way.
What you do know is that Valthorn has made an overt attack against you. It's no longer in the press. He has bandits close at hand that you did not expect to be there in those numbers. Something's coming to a culmination. You've been a thorn in his side and his fiance's side for years now. The context sort of these time jumps occludes that, but you have an enemy in Valthorn. He has an enemy in you. How you get out of this is up to you.
Yay!
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to start writing things up tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm already writing up in the Discord like a list of what we know so that we can think about it.
Hey, one other important thing that we did learn from JDO's experiment is that the doors aren't magically trapped.
No.
I mean, the fact that he could just open the damn thing was kind of surprising.
There's no world where I thought that door would open.
Yeah. The thing to keep in mind, there are locks on those doors, but there are more than a half dozen people in that room.
Yeah. So they're a little bit, confident.
Or they've been going outside, or for whatever reason, like when the room is occupied, what's the reason to lock the doors, right?
Yeah. I mean, I expect them to be locked next time, but I'm less worried that there'll be a magical trap, or they may not have that ability. All right. Well, it's time to start thinking about it.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
I think that fireball is going to be useful.
What Jason's not looking forward to is editing decisions.
Well, I'll be
So
sure
sorry,
to,
Jason.
I'm gonna try to. So everybody, take off what you're wearing, and put it with your computer area, so you remember that that's what we're wearing.
Will someone do a screenshot and post it?
There we
I
go.
think we'll be fine.
Let's see.
I'll have a hoodie on next time. That's how long the discussion went.
Mhm.
I'll post the screenshot.